Yeah, first of all, thank you to the organizers, to Maren and all the other organizers for making this such a success so far. I already enjoyed the format of the keynote, and I hope it will go as well as the keynote did in this session. So yeah, a huge shout out to all of you for making this a success. My name is Anouschka. I work in Utrecht, the Netherlands. And I performed this research that I present today in collaboration with Nicole Rommel, who is in Germany, in Bochum. And yeah, I will present some of the studies we did together today, which is about different types of dashboards. And it's conducted in the context of collaborative learning between students. So I would first like to give you a little bit of general introduction to what we mean by collaboration and specifically the teacher's role. So as you may all be aware of, there's been an increase in literature concerning teacher orchestration, which I take to mean teacher decision making in the classroom, both concerning transition between activities as well as decisions concerning providing students with support within activities. And I will look at how teachers orchestrate a specific activity, namely collaboration between students. And by collaborative learning, we take to mean situations in which two or more students work together on a shared goal. And to make it even more specific, I will talk about the context of computer-supported collaborative learning, or for short CSCL, which means facilitating or supporting the collaboration by means of digital tools. So in this context that we're talking about, it was conducted in primary schools in which students in dyads collaborated on a collaborative task. And they both had their own laptop, but they had a shared interface. So they were working on the same task, but were able to manipulate their own screens, and the manipulations of the one can be seen by the other. So this is the specific collaborative context that I will be talking about. And when we focus on the teacher's role in collaborative activities, the theoretical framework we use is that the teacher needs to go through several steps to support students. First, teachers monitor what's happening in the collaborating groups, and based on that diagnosis that the teacher forms, the teacher can decide to intervene or to not intervene. So to provide the type of support that the teacher thinks is effective at that moment. And then that intervention by the teacher is supposed to have an effect on the collaboration and in the end on learning. But a lot of literature has shown that specifically this phase of monitoring is very difficult for teachers, very demanding, because it's for one very hard for teachers to monitor what's really happening in all the groups. What are the groups really doing? It can seem like they're talking, but are they talking about the task or are they doing something else? You have individuals within groups, so is each individual contributing? Is everyone learning something, or are there some students dominating the collaboration? The groups may be working on different tasks or diverging in the progress they are making. The teacher needs to monitor both the cognitive and social aspects. So there's lots of decisions to make, and yeah, literature shows it's generally quite difficult for teachers to monitor collaboration. So a possible solution is, of course, which is bring us together learning analytics, and in particular learning analytic dashboards. So the idea is that by automatically collecting information when students are collaborating, this information can be fed back to the teacher, and the teacher may enhance his or her awareness of the situation and provide more adapted support to the student. So literature shows that teacher dashboards can have a positive influence on teachers' awareness of what's happening. But when we started these studies, we noticed that there's variation in the types of dashboards that you can provide to teachers. And one of the dimensions on which dashboards can differ is what we've called the level of interpretational aid. So there are certain dashboards in literature that you can call mirroring dashboards, which provide information to teachers, and the interpretation of that information is solely up to the teacher. You also have alerting dashboards, which not only provide information, but also provide an alert when something is happening, when the system detects a deviation from the desired state. And then you also have advising dashboards, which not only provide an alert, but also advise the teacher on what might be happening or even what to do in that situation. So the object of our studies was to look more closely into this difference between dashboards, between these different levels of interpretational aid. And in the first study, we looked at what the effect is of the role of the dashboard, so the mirroring, alerting, and advising, on teachers' detection and interpretation of situations in the context of CSCL. So could teachers detect the group that needs help for these several types of dashboards? The methodology we employed was an experiment with different versions of the dashboard, so the 3 versions I just outlined. And the teachers had to look at these dashboards, and they saw fictitious but realistic displays of student collaboration. So we've called those vignettes. So that were situations that were created by us, but based on actual classroom data that we collected previously. And by doing this, we could provide each teacher with the same situations without having to deal with all kinds of confounding variables. And in the situations that the teachers watched, there were 5 collaborating dyads who were working on assignments on fractions, so in the mathematics domain. And each vignette was designed to contain a problematic group. So one specific group that we thought needed attention from the teacher. And we examined whether teachers were able to single out this group by using the dashboard. And the dashboard was developed in an earlier study in co-design with teachers. And it looked like this. On the left side, they could choose multiple groups to look at, group overviews, group 1 to 5. And on the top, you can see the class overview with 6 indicators that teachers could look at. They could see how many exercises had already been accomplished by the students. They could see how many attempts the student had needed to do so. They could see whether the students were displaying trial and error behavior. They could see how much talking was going on and by which partner in the dyad. They could see the skill levels on the fraction assignments, and they could see the amount of activity on a timeline. Yeah, so this was the dashboard that the teachers could view. And the methodology followed this pattern. The teachers first got an explanation, signed informed consent, and answered several questionnaires about their experience in technological self-efficacy, for example. Then the teachers were able to look at the dashboards. They could click on these indicators and on the group overviews. When they were ready watching and they were able to decide which group they wanted to single out, they could press the button that they were finished. And then they received several questions about about the situation. And we did this in 3 conditions. The first one had the mirroring condition, where the information was provided but no additional aid was given to interpret the information. An alerting condition, where an alert popped up for the group where something was going on. And an advising condition, where the alert popped up and there was a small text box with an advice for the teacher what was going on in this group. Well, in the study, in the first study, we had 3 conditions with about 17 or 18 teachers in each condition. They were comparable concerning their age and experience. We had 3 conditions for the 3 types of dashboards, and the teachers looked at 8 vignettes in random order, so 8 situations. At the end, they had to indicate what group of the 5 they thought were facing a problem, and they also had to indicate how much effort it took them to identify this group and how confident they were of their decision. And we performed an ANOVA to compare the results over all 8 vignettes, how many groups they were able to identify, their average experienced cognitive load, and their average confidence level. The results for the first study were in the line that we were expecting. So there was a trend where the advising condition was doing better than the alerting condition, and the alerting condition was doing better than the mirroring condition, but there were no significant differences. So it seemed that all teachers in all conditions were able to single out the group that was facing a problem. The cognitive load was relatively low for all conditions, and the confidence level was relatively high in all conditions. We then thought we would try to make the conditions under which the teachers had to perform this task to try to make them more realistic to what's happening in the classroom. And one of the factors that we did not take into account in study 1 was that teachers had all the time in the world to look at the dashboard when they were making their decision. And when we looked at the log files of what teachers were doing, we indeed saw that they took quite some time to look at them before making a decision. So in the study 2, we influenced the time pressure that teachers were facing. So we had similar conditions. This time we compared the mirroring to the advising dashboard, but we added time pressure. So teachers only had a limited amount of time in this experiment to look at the dashboard and make their decision. Again, we used the same variables, so we compared whether they were able to identify the problematic group, the cognitive load associated with this decision, and the confidence level. And again, they looked at the same 8 vignettes, but this time with time pressure. So now there was in the top right corner, there was a timer where they could see that the time was decreasing and that they had to make a decision soon. So when we looked at the results then, we did find significant differences. So we saw that in the advising condition, they were better able to detect the groups, that the cognitive load was higher in the mirroring condition, and that the confidence level was higher in the advising condition. So the same results we had expected for study 1, this time did occur when the teachers were under time pressure. We also checked what teachers were doing when they interacted with the dashboard, so when they were making the decision. We looked at how many clicks they did in total, so on how often did they click on a group page or on an indicator page, and how many of the 5 groups they actually looked at when they looked at the dashboard. And we saw several differences here. So you see in the advising condition, the teachers seem to rely more on the group pages, whereas in the mirroring condition, they look more on the indicator pages. And you see in the advising condition, they are able to look at more groups out of the 5. So on average 3 instead of 1.5 in the mirroring condition. So it seems that the teachers in the advising condition were looking at other information and also for more groups. And to delve more into this result, we also performed process mining with the PROM program, which enables you to input the log file data, and it gives you a sequence analysis of what sequences follow each other significantly often. And it results in schemes like this. What we did was we compared the log files of the mirroring condition with the advising condition and looked at what pages the teachers visited when they interacted with the dashboards. And when you look at them, we see several overlap, but also differences between the 2 conditions. So what's similar is that from the start stage, you see that participants either go to a group page or to one of the indicators, which are listed on the right. You also see there are self loops, so which indicates that teachers often visit multiple groups after each other. We also see the same links on the right side between the indicators, which are listed in the same order as they are on the dashboard. So it seems that the dashboard itself also influenced how the teachers visited the information by going from the indicators from left to right in that order. But there are also some differences. So in the advising condition, for example, you see the difference that they can go to the alerted group because they had the alert in their condition. And they did that first before moving to one of the other groups. So you see, typically they first go to where the alert was given and then check out the other groups that are also in the situation. And another difference is how the participants reach the stop state. So for the mirroring condition, there are several arrows leading to the stop state, both from the group page to the and from the indicator pages. Whereas for the advising condition, usually teachers stop watching after checking one more time the alerted group, almost as if they are checking one more time their decision before pressing the stop button. If we look at what we did then was look at just the mirroring condition and comparing the instances where teachers accurately identified the group versus non-accurately to see whether teachers who were able to single out the correct group traversed the dashboard differently than teachers who did not. And here you see that there are lots of commonalities again between the 2, but also some differences. For example, that the similarity is that the teachers seem to have different interest in the different indicators. So indicated by the several arrows going from the indicators to the stop state. But in the accurate occurrences, they more often end with looking at one of the group pages. So that one is more similar to the advising condition than the non-accurate instances. So by doing this process modeling, we try to obtain more insight into what was actually happening when the teachers looked at the dashboards to explain these these findings. To conclude, we saw that without time pressure, teachers were able to detect groups that were in need of support in all conditions, probably because they had all the time in the world, or yeah, they had enough time to look at them and to form an impression of the information on the dashboard. And when there was time pressure, the advising dashboard helped to detect the groups. It lowered cognitive load and it increased the confidence level that the teachers had of their decision. Open questions are that we want to examine are what the role of teacher characteristics are. And what might be concluded here is that we should maybe not just provide adaptive support for students, but also provide dashboards that are adapted to what teachers need. So some teachers might have the data literacy skills that they can do all the interpretation on their own with the mirroring dashboards, whereas other teachers might prefer the advising dashboards. So these next steps that we are investigating are also aimed at these questions. The first thing we want to investigate is the role of teacher experience, because the line of reasoning here could be that if teachers have more experience, they more often implement collaborative learning. They may have developed relevant schemes, mental schemes of what ensures good collaboration, and that they know what to look for when they support student collaboration. And that might mean that they are better able to traverse the dashboards when they have these more developed mental schemes. So one of the studies we are conducting now is to compare dashboard use for inexperienced and experienced teachers, and also to develop measures for teachers' mental schema concerning collaborative learning. Because surprisingly, when we looked in the literature, there are questionnaires measuring student perceptions of collaboration, but not so much questionnaires, or maybe none at all, for teacher perceptions of collaboration. So we're trying to develop an instrument for that to relate it to teachers' dashboard use. Another step is that we want to look at the role of data literacy. So the line of reasoning here would be that with increased data literacy, teachers would have higher ability to navigate the dashboards, and that would again lead to maybe better detection of what students might be in need of support. So again, we are here developing an instrument to measure that, and to also compare that with the role of teacher experience, because these things might strengthen each other. So increased data literacy and increased experience might be even better than increasing one of the two teacher characteristics. So these are steps we are currently investigating. So that brings me to my final slide, in which I've listed some recent references that explain also the development of these dashboards, and maybe of interest to the community, two special issues that recently appeared. One is in the International Journal of CSCL, which is all about teacher orchestration tools in the context of CSCL, and one in a German journal, but written in English, these papers in Unterrichtswissenschaft, also about teacher orchestration tools. So if you're interested in the topic, I would highly recommend those special issues. And thank you for your attention.